Today, we are going to talk about what are 5 pointers that parents with children with disabilities can keep in mind as they're raising their children. And I would just like to preface this by saying that we're not parents. We are adults living with disabilities, but we were raised by really loving and encouraging parents, and we recognize that not everyone has those things, which make a huge difference in one's life. But I think that parents, particularly of children with disabilities, are some of the most dedicated, loyal, loving people that I have met. And so we do this episode in a type of homage to them of what they've done well and some of the things that perhaps young parents today can think about with their own children. The first pointer that we have in mind is that when you have a child who has some sort of disability, whether that be physical or intellectual, what I would say would be really helpful is to constantly explore the extent of their limitations. Explore the extent of their limitations without being forceful or domineering, but really experiment and trying different things and encouraging your child to try new things that perhaps they said before or you just witnessed that they weren't able to do. But when a child is growing up, they're constantly exploring, and if the parent swoops in and does things for them too often, then they won't know themselves what they're capable of, and that's a key component for them to grow up into adults that can be as confident and self-sufficient as possible.
The second point is there are developed relationships with older adults who have the same disability or having them be mentors to young kids. You will see that they have been through similar situations, and I pulled it through.
Yeah, it's like finding a purple unicorn when you see someone who's an adult and they're thriving with the same condition as you are, and you just think, wow, it's such a rarity. But if a kid is exposed to that from an early age, it might change their life and what they think they're capable of. 3 is if your child has to rely on other people or employees for their personal care, which, if that's the case, they should be introduced to that pretty young, so that way it's not such a shock when you, the parent, stops providing that care and they have to find it elsewhere. You need to involve your child in that process of all of it, because it's really involved. Teach your child how to recruit employees, how to manage the finances of paying those employees, how to interview employees and train them. I mean, essentially, you're teaching a kid how to be a manager, how to be a business person, a leader of people. Huge skills that you may not even know if you're not in the business world or in that area, but it would behoove you to to learn them, because it's going to be a part of your child's life, and if they don't know, they're going to have really tough lessons and would potentially suffer a lot if they're not given this knowledge earlier in the game. And even if they may not need it at this point in their lives, based on the nature of their condition, they may need it in the future. I also recognize that this may relate to point number one, which is you may realize, well, I don't think my child would ever be able to get to that point of being a manager, a recruiter, a leader in this area, and that's okay. But knowing that early on and knowing what the limitations are is important. 4. So the other one is communication. It's with healthcare professionals. So your kid was born with something that was different about them medically. Likely they're going to be interacting with medical professional a lot more than the average kid. So as a parent, I'm sure, because you're probably a very dedicated parent, you're advocating for your child when they have a doctor's appointment. You're speaking up and saying what they feel or how they've been experiencing certain symptoms, how a drug reaction went. You're learning all of this stuff, and it's very overwhelming, I'm sure. Well, when your child reaches a certain age that they can start to learn these things about how you're communicating and relaying this important information, you should start that process as well. Because when you're long gone, or even when your child reaches an age of adulthood, you're not going to be there at every doctor's appointment. You're not going to be able to be your child's advocate in the same way. So if you teach them how to remain confident and clear and coherent with how they relay information about their own health, it will empower them tremendously. And number 5,
then let your kid go up in a bubble. Have them explore new things
and people.
and learn how to adapt.
Yeah, it's a big one. I mean, this could go for any kid, really, and child rearing, in the sense that no kid should really grow up in a bubble. Kids should, as Dan said, explore and meet new people, and parents should be the encouragers of that. And particularly if your child has a disability, I think that some parents go the far end of the extreme of trying to care and protect their children by not letting them do a lot of the things or experiencing things that might be negative in the short term. That if you let your kid go out and play with the neighborhood kids, they might come back with a small injury. We can never protect children 100%. That's clear, but it's a delicate balance of trying to let your kid learn that there's a whole wide world out there and they can fully participate in it. So I know what it's like to grow up in a bubble where you only have mainly your parents as your caregivers, and you don't recognize yet the unique challenges that come with living with a disability and trying to make it on your own out here. It's tough. It's tough for people without disabilities. The more that you expose your child to these challenges, but give them the tools that they could use to get through them, the better off they will be, we think, because we're adults and... Are we thriving? I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
We're thriving?
Yeah.
All right, we're getting there. I agree the day we're thriving, so... our care situation's still up in the air, but I think that for the most part...
We found now right around there.
That's true, Dan. That makes a good point, that if we hadn't gone through these, if we didn't explore what Dan was capable, what I was capable of doing physically, then we wouldn't have learned that, when somebody doesn't show up, Dan and we can do our own care. It might not be the same level, but we're surviving and it can happen. And people can do it. A person with a traumatic brain injury, a person with a different type of muscular dystrophy, it is possible. And possible can look very different from what you as a parent might think for your child at this point in time. So that is what we want to impart to you today, that rethink what's possible and encourage your child to always question what's possible, especially if they're living with a disability. So we hope that was helpful. All the best to you wherever you are in the world. Keep it Ginchiest.
Cheers.